Star Fox. It's one of those Nintendo franchises that kind of stays in the background, not getting the kind of exposure or release frequency of Nintendo's big guns, Mario and Zelda. It's even completely skipped out on the Wii, so now we finally have a new entry in the Star Fox series on the Wii U, and the reaction to it has been surprisingly more mixed than you might expect from a first party Nintendo title. And so, here I am to throw my hat into the ring and weigh in with my own thoughts on the game. So, without further ado, let's rock. For those not in the know, the gameplay of the Star Fox series is an on-rail shooter, where you play as Fox McCloud from the titular Star Fox team, and Zero maintains his solid core of the series. The flying and the combat keep a good flow to them, and there's plenty of things going on to keep it interesting, without it ending up being too much going on, preventing the game from becoming too overwhelming for the player. But this is the standard for the series. So let's talk about the big change with Zero, and that is the new control scheme. In previous games, your aim was tied to moving your ship, but in Zero, we have a new element, where aim can be controlled independently, using the gyro controls of the gamepad. And this control system has proven very divisive. Personally, I quickly became fond of it. It felt easy and accurate to adjust my aim this way, and there's one component to it that I think makes it work so well. The problem I have had with a lot of motion controls in the past is when the sensor loses track of the controller, leaving you completely exposed and defenseless. But with Zero, if you press the Y button, it immediately recalibrates and recenters your aim, regardless of how the gamepad is positioned. And what do you know? By implementing a solution to motion control's big problem, it made me enjoy the controls far more. Another aspect to this control scheme is that the gamepad shows a cockpit view. Switching to looking at the gamepad for this view gives you an increased accuracy for your aim while having lower awareness of your surroundings. It's a clever bit of risk versus reward design. So yeah, I really liked these air wing parts, but problems start to arise when you're not in the air wing. See, there's several other vehicles you have to use during the course of the game. One such vehicle is the new Walker, which is a transformation of the air wing. And I really don't like this Walker. It's here that its new control scheme becomes problematic. As opposed to the air wing, where you're on rails, here you have free rotation and movement, and that makes it pretty awkward to use. Your standard shooter uses a 2-stick control scheme to handle moving and aiming, but now these two things are split over 3 separate inputs, the 2 sticks and the gyro controls. And I never became comfortable with using these controls, which is not helped by the fact that this isn't the main form of gameplay, meaning I'm not spending nearly enough time practicing this control scheme to become comfortable with it. However, I'm glad of that. I'd rather spend more time with a playstyle I enjoy, rather than being forced to spend a lot of time to master an uncomfortable control scheme. What's most disappointing with this is that I was immediately reminded of Kid Icarus Uprising, a third-person shooter / on-rail shooter by Nintendo, which was let down by an awkward control scheme for its third-person shooter part. And I was holding out hope for a sequel on the Wii U that would fix this problem. But after Star Fox Zero suffered from it as well, I'm a lot less hopeful for this. There is an elephant in the room that Star Fox fans might be pointing out about what I just said, and that is all range mode, where you get full movement control of the air wing. And I did just say that I had no problem with the air wing controls. The big difference with all range mode, compared to the Walker, is the areas they take place in. With all range mode, it's set in big arenas, giving you a greater view of your surroundings and more room to maneuver in. But when you play as the Walker, you're in much more cramped spaces, and this is what makes the controls feel so awkward. So you know I'm not just a big hypocrite. But there's other vehicles as well, and the big one I want to speak about is the Gyro Bird and its deployable robot. I want to speak about it because it's something else I really didn't enjoy. The problem with this vehicle is the pacing for it. It's incredibly slow paced, and this is especially true for that annoying little robot I mentioned. This irritating guy drops out the bottom of his gyro bird, tethered by a rope, and you slowly move this bot, dragging the bird behind it, seeing his viewpoint on the gamepad, and movement is the entirety of this robot's gameplay, as you aim for screams to touch to hack him. It's slow and interesting, and I swear the robot's movement sounds like a bloody vacuum cleaner. And even when playing as the gyro bird rather than the robot, it's still very slowly paced, as the focus of its level is stealth based, as opposed to the shooting action of the rest of the game. It's poorly implemented variety, as it just doesn't feel fitting with the rest of the game. Now, as I said before, I really like the main airwing parts of the game, but there's still a big problem, even with these parts. And that is that I've played Lilac Wars, aka Star Fox 64, before. Zero feels incredibly familiar to 64 at times, feeling more like a remake rather than a new game. And given 64 has been playable for 9 years now, getting to do it again is a lot less exciting, especially when you consider it did get an actual remake on the 3DS. And it's very disappointing it didn't use this revival to make something new and exciting. This extends to something I imagine a lot of people aren't particularly interested in with this game, and that's the story. Zero has a very basic story, told through his barely animated conversations between General Pepper and the Star Fox team, much like how it was done in 64. But the thing is, 64 wasn't the last Star Fox game. No, on the GameCube we had the underappreciated Star Fox Assault. And Assault was a definite step up for the story, adding a new enemy and providing more interesting character interactions. What's more is that it also made the conversations between characters more dynamically animated. Now, I'm not going to pretend Assault's story was Shakespeare, but it's a definite step up for the series, and it's disappointing that his step up was completely ignored for Zero. Honestly, between this and Paper Mario Sticker Star, I'm really starting to wonder if Miyamoto just doesn't like story in games. In fact, I wonder if he was given too much influence for this game. See, when you boot at the main menu, Platinum Games' logo is prominently displayed, and I really love Platinum, but if that logo wasn't there and I went in blind, I never would have guessed they were involved, as I can't feel their influence at all. The game feels like a game Miyamoto has made before. Much more specifically, that Star Fox 64 game he made before. So, other than that control scheme, Zero could not be any more of a safe, unoriginal game design. So, to sum up, if you want another Star Fox game to play through and enjoy, this is a perfectly solid one. But it's not really going to impress you with some great innovation or new ideas. Well, thanks for watching, and hey, I tell you what, if you want to try the game for yourself, I'll divide up my copy of Zero for you and... oh bollocks, it's happened again.